public during the meeting. Moorhead Public Service Commission welcomes and encourages customer input on issues listed on the agenda or of general water, electric utility interest, time and commission permitting. Speakers are limited to a 3-minute presentation. Customers wishing to address the commission regarding a specific agenda item will be afforded an opportunity during the discussion of that item. Customers wishing to speak on matters not listed on the agenda will be given the opportunity to do so under the heading Customers to be Heard and/or Recognitions. Each person requesting the opportunity to speak is asked to fill out a request to speak form located on the back of the room and presented to the administrative assistant in attendance at the meeting. Any follow-up or feedback will be done by email on anything that cannot be resolved this evening. I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda, given that we are going to move item number 12 to between item number 7 and 8. I'd entertain a motion that makes that adjustment.
So moved, Gilbertson.
Second, Baker.
Okay, I have a motion by Gilbertson, seconded by Baker, to approve the agenda. Any discussion? Seeing none. Duran?
Yes.
Gilbertson?
Aye.
Baker?
Aye.
Thompson? Aye. I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion by Duran, seconded by Baker, to approve the consent agenda. Discussion? Seeing none. Duran?
Yes.
Gilbertson?
Aye.
Baker?
Aye.
Thompson? Aye. Customers to be heard and/or recognitions. Any recognitions, Mr. Schmidt?
Yes, Madam Chair, I have two. We have Seth Martinson. He just had his 5-year anniversary with MPS in January. And Mandy Savageau, who is our records manager, she also just hit her 5-year milestone. So,
Wow, I feel old. Great, thank you. And we see Paul here. He was introduced last week, but now he's here in person, so that's Commissioner Baker. Nice to have you on board.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Any old business, folks? Seeing none, we'll now insert item number 12. All right. I entertain a motion to close this meeting for executive session as permitted by Minnesota Statute 13D.05 Subdivision 3B to discuss potential litigation as part of an attorney-client privileged communication.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Gilbertson, seconded by Baker, to close the public meeting for executive session. The public meeting will reopen after the executive session concludes, although we don't expect to take action on this item. So, do we vote on this? No, we did not. Did we already vote? I'm sorry. We haven't voted to close yet. Okay, thank you. Gilbertson?
Aye.
Baker?
Aye.
Duran?
Aye.
Thompson? Aye. Okay, this meeting is now closed. meeting?
So moved.
A second.
A motion by Duran, seconded by Baker to reopen the public meeting. Duran,
Yes.
Gilbertson,
Aye.
Baker, Thompson, yes. Item number 8, reports. City Council.
Nothing new to report.
Okay, thank you. B, Public Service Commission. I don't think anybody's met, so that leaves us with the General Manager's report. Mr. Schmidt.
Yep, I've got a few items under there. I'll have Taylor Holt come up. He'll speak to the Community Solar Garden credits. Again, the Community Solar Garden was put back in about 2014, 2015 timeframe. There's 9 arrays at the site, and on an annual basis, we provide a credit back to those customers that are members of the Community Solar Garden. I will let Taylor speak to the rest of it. Go ahead, Taylor.
Good evening, Commission. Taylor Holt, Project Engineer. Yeah, this is just an annual report on the credits that we pay out to customers once a year. Basically pull all of the energy generated from all 9 arrays and then disperse those throughout each of the owners, less any maintenance costs associated with it. The dollar amounts have started dwindling down as the maintenance costs keep creeping up, and unfortunately we have had a lot of warranty replacements on them. We're trying to get materials and the labor performed as quickly as we can, but I think next year or the year after, the first 2 arrays are no longer under warranty, and that could start impacting those credits. But this was kind of a tip of the spear type project in trying to get into solar in our community and provide it to the residents. So it'll be a learning experience, and hopefully they continue to produce for years to come, and we'll do our best to keep them running as long as possible.
So within the general manager report, based on they get a credit per panel, and it's based on what their service is. Is it residential, small general service, or general service? So that's just kind of shows the differences based on the panel that they'll receive a credit for.
Questions? So, do we have any other plans for solar? Any remote plans for more solar gardens?
I usually ask about once a year at the staff level, but the costs for installing solar right now just don't have any sort of strength competing against the renewable energy credits that we purchase. When I bring the agenda item to renew that commitment annually, I think this last year it was projected we'd have to install about $200 million worth of solar to get the same sort of impact that the Bright Energy Choices program provides us, at the cost of $60,000 a year, which ends up being a long, long time to actually pay that off or come up to the same amount as building it. And building new solar panels are only projected to last about 30 years. So the return on investment isn't quite there at today's costs. But if there's enough interest and direction from the commission, we can look into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are doing. I think all the schools are going to be doing some type of demonstration project for solar for schools, and we are looking at the community center library as a potential site as well too for some solar on public buildings. We're still waiting for the grant information to come out on that to see what the value is and if that is a doable project. Currently it's not. We've been working with city staff on that. Go ahead, Taylor.
Travis, please interrupt me if I'm inaccurate in this, but my understanding of the initial community solar garden, it was a way of allowing customers to get into the solar part of things while we were still trying to figure out how we were going to handle it at the customer level. This gave them an opportunity and also bought us time to get to where we are today, where we have a program in which we allow customers to put solar on their homes, and we got through all of the hoops and hurdles of figuring out how they are going to be compensated and how that's going to affect the grid. Now that we've reached that point where that works, it we do have a lot of interest at the local level of customers putting it on their homes. Really, the trade-off between community solar and doing it on their own homes is not having the upfront cost of doing it on their own homes. They would be able to just buy a panel at a time if we expanded upon the community solar garden. But
That's, yeah.
the purpose is different today than it was 8, 9 years ago.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you. Any other questions for Taylor? Thanks, Taylor.
So next item, I'll have Mark Moylan come up, 2023 audit update with Ide Bailey. I'll have Mark speak to that, and then I'll finish up the general manager's report. What did I say?
Update?
Audit update.
Okay. We've currently met with the auditors. I was thinking we were doing Red River Valley payout, so that must be
Oh, we were
next.
Doing that later.
Yeah, that's next, after the
Okay,
GM
fair
report.
enough. The audit update. We've met with the auditors to complete the 2023 financial statement audit. They have scheduled in-office work to occur the second week in March, where they'll be on site to audit our information. The process is currently underway. They've sent MPS an engagement letter that we will need to sign and return to them to say that they're going to complete the work. This is the final year of a 5-year agreement, so after this year, we'll need to renew or enter a new agreement with an auditor for next year's, for the 2024 financial audit. But this will be the last year for the 2021, I think, to 2024 or 23 audit. We did meet with them. Again, they plan to do the on-site work. MPS will be providing most of our information electronically to them well in advance of their desire to come in site, so it should be a relatively seamless audit. We've used this process now since 2020 when COVID first hit, and so they've actually spent very little time in our office working with us directly. Most of the stuff we're able to get to them efficiently electronically. That's the update at this time.
When we renegotiate, are we going to expect the cost to increase? Because I'm just amazed at how the cost has not really increased over the 5-year term.
I think it probably will go up some. Again, it's been relatively minor, but
Yeah.
again, because they do the cities and ours together, we do have some overlap in some of the areas that they do. I think it is in our best interest to kind of continue to work with the common auditor because there is so much overlap. But I do not know what the cost would be expected to increase at this time.
Oh, right, I just was.
Yep. But they have been relatively stable.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with this. It seems really, I looked at it and went, gee, it hasn't kept up with inflation, so.
That's the beauty probably of it being entered into 5
Yeah,
years ago.
Yeah, I suppose. Any
At
questions?
this time,
for-
I have any questions, yeah.
Yeah.
Re-upping a 5-year deal again, is that just lumped into the city
We actually do negotiate a separate deal. We'll be working with the City Finance Division to see what they're going to do, if they're going to go out and look for a request for proposals or submit an RFP or something to look for a new auditor. We did have that occur 4 or 5 years ago. It happened with the city. They went and used a different auditor for a couple of years. It went okay. I'm not going to say it was seamless. It went okay, but then they have re-upped with Ide Bailey as well for the last 2 audit years. And I do believe it's very efficient to have both entities doing and using the same auditor.
Any other questions for Mark? Thanks, Mark. See you later.
You.
Fair enough. Thank you.
I have 2 other items on the general manager's report. The MRES Board of Directors, which I sit on a monthly basis, had some good information on some investor-owned utility rate cases. I put that in the general manager's report as well. Excuse me. South Dakota, Iowa, Minnesota, North Dakota, of course, those are all the 4 states that MRES is involved with, and all those investor-owns were seeing, for the most part, double-digit rate increases. MDU in South Dakota, they were at that roughly 17% rate increase. Alliant in Iowa had a 9% and then asked for an interim 7%. And then Minnesota Power did something similar as well too, where they were at 9.5 and then added another interim rate of 8.6. Otter Tail Power, North Dakota, a smaller IOU, had a 6% rate increase in North Dakota. So 2.5 isn't bad. So, and those, every couple of years, they can go back for requests on that. I haven't seen anything on, I think XL would do another one here coming in 2024. So you might see some updates there as well too. And then on now that we're in the legislative session season, MRES and MMUA are providing updates. I've also included that in there. Again, what's going on in the different states based on MRES. We'll start seeing the MMU one here, I think, mid-February, roughly, once Minnesota legislative session starts. So just, excuse me, good information for you to see what's going on and keep up to date with.
Any questions about this item? Any questions for Travis or anything before we move on to accepting the general manager's report? Okay, I'd entertain a motion then to accept the general manager's report.
So moved.
Motion by Gilbertson, seconded by Baker, to accept the general manager's report. No further questions or discussion. Seeing none, we'll move on to Gilbertson,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Durand, Thompson, aye. Is that an aye from you, Heidi? Okay. That's a shake of the head. We're good. Next item is the accept report on service territory payment. Mr. Schmidt.
Yeah, I'll have Mark come up. I'll kind of give the background on it, and I'll let Mark kind of go through the details of the numbers. Whenever we annex a property or a area into the city of Moorhead, Moorhead Public Service takes over that electric service territory from the local utility. Back in 2016, we annexed Oakport in over a long-term agreement that we had back in the early or mid-90s. And so that's really the major one that's sitting out there. We do have two smaller ones as well too from the south side of Moorhead, where we've had some properties that got annexed in over the last couple of years. Again, this is a typical process that we do, and then as we do that, there's a 10-year repayment of kilowatt hours sold based on a mill rate. And so once we have those agreements in place, on an annual basis, we provide a check to either Red River Valley Co-op or XL Energy. Those would be the two other electric utilities in the area that we would work with or annex service territory from. So with that, Mark really does the details behind it to pull all the usage in those areas out, and then based on a mill rate, we calculate that. So Mark, you want to go over the details of the numbers?
Sure, thank you, Travis. I'm ready for this one now. So this is the payout to the Red River Valley Co-op for the annexation agreements that we currently have in place. As Travis indicated, we have a combination of prepayments that we do for some service areas, and others we do, as I call it, pay-as-we-go, and these areas are the pay-as-we-go. So as consumers use the kilowatt hours in these areas, we reimburse Red River Valley for the usage. We do also include any new builds that occur within these areas, as well as drop off any areas that are sold or demolished. And over the past couple of years, we have had a number of city buyouts for flood mitigation. So we have had some properties drop off. So for 2023, the payment to Red River Valley Co-op was $81,082.71, which is a little bit higher than last year's of $76,835.26. And some of that, we did have one area get purchased last year. We had a couple new purchases. It looks like 6 were built within this service area. So we do include those, and we update our schedule so that we do capture all of the properties that are affected.
And as Mark alluded to, when we took over Oakport, we did a prepayment with XL, so that's why you don't see any payment to XL. We did that as a prepayment, as a part of a negotiated agreement.
So that Oakport one will fall off soon.
Yep.
Yes, and then we'll just have a single property in one area that will go through 2023, and then, or not 2020, and then another one, well, one began in 2020, so it'll end in 2030, and then this new recent property started in 23, and it will go through 33. But again, they're single, standalone residents at this time, or commercial properties, just singles.
Great. Any questions? Mr. Gilbertson?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. Is it 100% payback? Like, is that the actual, like, does MPS make zero then off of those for 10 years?
At this time, we pay them the mill rate. So again, if we're making 10 cents per kilowatt hour, we're paying them 3. So we are making, some profit. In addition, we have a surcharge on those areas to recapture what we do pay over time, as well as integration costs, any legal costs that are incurred. And so the residents or the accounts in that area do pay a surcharge, which can range up to 18 to 20 years after the start of the annexation date. So we do recapture it. There's not really a loss to MPS.
And this is, Oakport was the biggest one we're going to see, right? I mean, that was
Correct.
the big area. So, yeah, it just, the way things are going from a commercial standpoint, 10 years paybacks is a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the 10-year repayment to the exiting utility is a pretty common repayment period with service territory buyouts. We try to do it over a 10-year period. So you see it across the state, wherever it's at.
Any other questions?
Say the other thing too,
Oh, sorry.
Commissioner Gilbertson, so for the first 10 years, it is also agreed upon that the city doesn't take a transfer on that, so that helps reduce that time frame of the payoff of that surcharge as well too. But then once the 10-year period is up, then the transfer gets included back into the transfer. So in 2027, roughly, those dollars will go back onto the transfer as well too.
It seems like 10 years is
Yeah.
10 years is a long time, unless but you recapture most of that. So it's just, I mean, like going forward, we can't keep doing I don't think we can keep doing the 10-year.
Yeah, and we can
window.
work on that in the next ones, but we'll get some guidance from Kayla Brennan. She's our service territory attorney out of the cities. So if there's a way to do it, it's just been pretty common. The last 10 agreements have been 10-year payback periods at a specific mill rate. You could shrink it down, but they might want more over that time as well too. A lot of blue sky.
Blue sky in the commercial world, blue sky is worth less today than it was
Yeah.
2 years ago.
It is.
Any questions for Mr. Moylanen? Okay, thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
I entertain a motion to accept the report.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Gilbertson, seconded by Baker, to accept the report on service territory payment to Red River Valley Co-op. Any further discussion? Okay, Durand,
Yes.
Gilbertson,
Aye.
Baker, Thompson, aye. Item number 9, task order number 9.
Yep. So we've been having some issues with our ozone generators. It helps with forgetting the word now. I'll let Mark explain it. But in our water plant, and so we're moving up the timeline of replacement of these. These are some 30-year-old pieces of equipment, roughly. And we went through an RFP process latter part of last year, November, December timeframe. And we're looking to select Short Elliott Hendrickson to assist MPS as a consultant with the ozone generator replacement project. So Mark, I'll let you go speak to the rest of it.
Thank you, Travis. Mark Pritchard, Water Plant Manager. As Travis had mentioned, we've been using ozone as a primary disinfectant for Moorhead Public Services water since the new water plant, as we call it, was put into service in 1994. Since that time, our staff have done a tremendous job of taking care of all the maintenance in-house without outside contractor assistance, and we have been able to get a 30-year service life, where the typical service life is about 15 to 20 years for the equipment. We had originally placed the replacement schedule in future budgets. After we had our first high-profile failure of what's called the cooling water jacket, we ended up accelerating those timeframes as part of our 2024 budget process going into this year. So we originally had it few years out. We originally moved those budget dollars up to 2026, and then I think it was the morning after that budget process was submitted to the Commission's Budget Committee, we ended up having a second failure of that same equipment in a similar fashion. So we thought at that point, it's very prudent to move forward in an expedited manner. And we were able to work with our finance staff, and we were able to reallocate a little over $2 million from our reserves and other projects that we had on the docket here for the next coming couple of years to free up significant capital for a pre-purchase of ozone generators as part of a replacement strategy. So the big thing with ozone generators is they are specialty equipment. It's not something that you can typically find on the shelf someplace in multiple continents. They're typically made to order. And during COVID, there's some area utilities that waited up to 18 months for generators once the purchase process was underway. So with our more timely situation, we wanted to get that process done sooner. So we developed a strategy that involves a pre-selection and a pre-procurement process as part of this RFP for services. So what we did is we wrote that in as really step one of our RFP for professional services. And that first step involved selection criteria involving performance stats, maintenance requirements, spare parts listings, among some other things. And we thought we really want to tackle that first and purchase it ahead of a construction bidding phase. That shaves about a year of timeline off of the wait list for this equipment. So it's an acceleration of the time. So as part of that strategy, we baked that into our request for proposals that we were preparing October through early December. And we sent this RFP out to 3 area engineering firms that are not only well-versed in ozone generation equipment, but they also have significant in-house experience with MPS's water treatment facility. Of those 3, we had 2 respondees, and as Travis had mentioned at the beginning of our presentation for this item, Short Elliott Hendrickson did come in with the recommendation for tonight. Their total not to exceed price for the design services up through the bidding process is $171,922. Again, this RFP involves not only the selection process and the engineering work to make that decision, but it will also have the rest of the ozone room and the support equipment looked at to make sure that the new system is compatible with existing equipment that is quite robust and still has a lot of service life left in it. So a lot's going into this RFP. It goes, again, all the way up through the bidding phase for construction services. The timeline for this will allow those construction estimates to be incorporated into 2025 budget documentation. So we will have fresh off the press numbers for 2025 budget dollars and for construction season. So the next items that we have coming on the docket, should this be approved this evening, will be in approximately May of this spring. We look to have an ozone generator system selected by which everything else will be subsequently designed around. So it's quite an aggressive timeline. It was the most cost-effective route for the design that we saw, given a few other factors to speed up that process. And the teams that were selected as part of all the RFPs received did have what I would call the A-teams of the water industry on this project. So we had some really good RFP responses, and this one is what we recommend tonight.
Wow. Yeah, so this equipment is original to the building, right?
It is,
Correct,
yes.
yes.
1992 was the manufacture date, and testing and service was at the tail end of 1993. So we've got a little over 30 years out of it.
And the one thing to add to that too is parts are very difficult to find to fix this thing. So that's really one of the main reasons we expedited this process and moved this project up.
Any other questions? Comments?
Have you worked with these guys before? I'm a little leery of a company starts with the name Short. Kept thinking it was a typo.
Mark, if you want to go ahead and explain all the work that they've done in the plant, that would be good.
Sure. So when it came down to who we thought for our list of respondees, we worked to basically narrow down the list to who do we know in the area who are subject matter experts in ozone, and then who is the team that they build around that core group of individuals to make sure that this process is successful. Out of all three of the engineering firms that we spoke to for the RFP, two of them have experience doing research within our facility. So the Short Elliott Hendrickson group that was put together, the lead for that project actually did their master's thesis on ozone in our water plant, so bromate prevention strategies within our water plant. So they're very well versed in that aspect, and we have very high confidence that they'll be able to put together a quality project for us.
What other projects did they work on too, Mark?
Other projects include pilot studies for 3, if not 4, different types of water and wastewater facilities within the state of Minnesota in the past 5 years. The sub-consultants that were selected to bolster the group's experience, they're from a company named HDR. They have nationwide experience, primarily in the southern and eastern portions of the country. We called up references that had very high-profile projects, 50, 60, 70 million gallon per day facilities, and they had a combination of experience for retrofits to new types of equipment and new builds from the ground up. So they're very well versed, I would say.
Wonderful. So I entertain a motion to approve this task order.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Gilbertson, seconded by Baker, to approve task order number 9 with Short Elliott Hendrickson. Discussion, any further questions or discussion? Gilbertson,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Duran,
Yes.
Thompson, yes. Thanks, Mark. Item number 10, water treatment and wastewater chemicals.
Sure. Again, this is an annual process that we go through, typically April 1 through March 31st on an annual basis for chemicals. Not only do we do the purchasing for our water treatment chemicals, but also the wastewater plant as well too. So we combine efforts with city staff on whatever chemical needs they are. We do it in one bid instead of splitting it out and making double the work. And I'll let Mark speak to what's going on this year.
All right. Thank you, Travis. Mark Pritchard, Water Plant Manager. As Travis had mentioned, each year we go out for annual advertisement for bids for a variety of water treatment and wastewater treatment chemicals. As Travis had mentioned, we do combine forces with the city wastewater staff to make one combined bid set so that we don't have 2 different bids going out at more or less the same time. And we are also able to take advantage of economies of scale. So ordering more of one thing versus 2 smaller portions of the same item, you get better pricing that way as well. So that's something that we've taken advantage of for quite a few years together, and it's worked out very well. To ensure that the chemical bids were received on time, we put together some advertisements and the specifications at our last meeting in December of 2023, and we received bids up to the 17th of January. As the attached bid tabulation shows, we don't have as many bidders submitting information as we have had in past years. However, for a couple key items, we did see that prices are finally beginning to relax downward a little bit compared to what we've seen the past few years. Short history on the chemical pricing since COVID began. 2020 and 2021, everything was about the same. We saw 1 to 2% increases. Into 2023, we saw that 18%, 26% annual increases in chemical costs. So it really ratcheted up quickly. I'm very happy to see that bid prices are beginning to stabilize. It looks like the chemical supply market as a whole is beginning to finally find its footing in these tumultuous times. So we did see that there was a handful of chemicals that stayed at the same price as they were for 2023 contract years. We also saw that there was a handful that went down by as much as 43% for one of our phosphates that we use. The biggest items that we use on an annual basis are lime, soda ash, and ferric sulfate, and chlorine. Those are primarily used for the softening process and then for our disinfection protocol. That's about 85% of what we spend each year, those 3 or 4 chemicals. So it's a very high cost, but we also keep in mind that if we soften centrally at our facility, it stops from having to have individual softeners inside people's homes causing issues for our folks at the wastewater treatment plant. So it's a balancing act in that front. Overall, we are recommending that we have a few items to skip relative to the bid items received. One is to award the bid for bid item 15, liquid ferric sulfate. We did not receive pricing for its granular counterpart this year. And then as part of a continuation of a previous item that we brought for chemical feed adjustments, we are for the first time awarding a bid for hydrogen peroxide. We're using that in lieu of our bid item number 13, calcium thiosulfate. And we are looking at making a few other small tweaks and changes here as it's shown on the bid tabulation sheet. The 12-month contract cost based off of previous year's usage and what we bid for specs, if we are to use all of those bidded volumes, we're looking at $1.694 million for a 12-year cost. That is not including what the wastewater plant would use. That's just for our water treatment facility for MPS. So that's about 1.25% less than last year, which is a good change of pace considering how volatile those markets have been.
That's good news. Very good news. How much does that translate to us? I mean, 1.25%?
The 1.25% is a little over $21,000. So it stayed pretty flat in all considerations, but
Yeah.
it's nice to see that we're not seeing, 40, 50, 60% cost increases for certain chemicals. We're finally starting to see some of those big ones come back down.
Any questions? Go ahead.
On, and kudos, I'm sure it's been difficult to do this over the last couple years with supply chains all screwed up. You consolidate with the city. Is there opportunity for more consolidation? You mentioned the bidders have gone down. Can you consolidate with other public utilities, either to the east or the west, and get, is there a next tier of better pricing for next year? Just a broad question.
Very good question. We have had preliminary talks with the City of Fargo water treatment facility. The difference is the volume that they order relative to the size of their storage compartments that they use for certain chemicals. It means for us, for example, we maybe get a pallet, they get a bulk shipment in a truck that goes into a silo. So the shipping mechanism would have to change to be consistent between the two, but it is nonetheless something that we've looked at. It boils down to what is that capital cost for that type of investment for those large chemical silos, for example, and then what's that payout? And so far it's punched out to be a pretty back and forth answer depending on what chemical it is. It works out better for some of our larger chemicals, but the investment initially is quite high.
Not a broad brush, all are not created equal. So you're
Correct,
really
yeah.
thinking about it. Perfect.
Any other questions? All right. I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Duran, seconded by Gilbertson, to award the bid for the 2024 water treatment and wastewater chemicals. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Duran,
Yes.
Baker,
Aye.
Gilbertson,
Aye.
Thompson, aye. Thank you, Mark. Okay. Bond series. Bonds.
Bonds, yes. So it's been the Mark and Mark show tonight, so I'll bring Mark Moylan back up for one more round here. Again, back in the December timeframe, we started the process of the bond sale for $27.81 million. Again, this is for the project down at our DOE substation, where we've had 2 notices to construct to build 2 shunt reactors, along with expand that substation as well too. Overall, we had a really good response on that. We got good rates, and I'll let Mark speak to those and asking you to concur with the council action that they took at the last council meeting.
Sure. Thank you, Travis. Mark Moylan, and Finance Division Manager. As Travis indicated, this sale did take place on January 22nd. Our advisor, they were pleasantly surprised that they had 14 bidders that were interested in this offering. They were anticipating maybe 6 to 8, and when it all was said and done, they got 14 bidders. They were anticipating a premium that would be offered of about $1.8 to $1.9 million. It ended up being $2.768. So it was sold at a very good price, and the interest rate they were expecting was between 3.6 to 3.9. The final interest rate ended up being 3.5044. So it was a very, very good sale, very well sought after by investors. And so this is just a formal action to concur with the action that they already took to award the sale to TD Securities. And this time I'm open to any questions that you may have on the sale.
Great, Mark. That's good news. Travis told me and I was doing a little happy dance because I didn't expect those rates.
I did not either. It was very nice. And again, without having a lot of familiarity with these, to get the feedback that we received from Baker Tilly, they were very pleasantly surprised at the quality of the offerings and where everything finaled out. So it was very good on MPS's behalf. Getting that increased bond rating back in August definitely helped to get a better interest rate than we would have with the A3. So overall, it was good timing on MPS's behalf.
Yeah, and then again, the city of Moorhead and MPS both have separate bond ratings. So, back in September, the city's bond rating went up, so did MPS's. We did do a bond rating call in December after our last commission meeting on the 19th, and that was about an hour presentation to them. They reaffirmed our AA2 bond rating. They were very excited about it and gave a good response on that as well too. So, went very well, and we're very happy with the outcome.
Great. Any further questions? Okay, I entertain a motion. Oh, go ahead.
No, great
okay.
job.
Sure. Wonderful. I entertain a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion by Gilbertson, seconded by Baker, to approve the action concurring with Moorhead City Council resolution on the bonds. No further discussion? Okay.
I just want to say great job to Mark and his
Yeah.
staff for putting all the stuff together.
Yeah, no kidding. Thanks, Mark. Well, we
Thank
haven't
you.
voted yet, but thanks. Gilbertson,
Aye.
Duran,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Thompson, yes. Okay, great. We've already gone to executive session, so we're moving on to upcoming meetings. Next meeting's February 20th. And so I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Gilbertson, seconded by Duran to adjourn the meeting. Gilbertson,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Duran,
Yes.
Thompson, yes. Meeting's adjourned, and thanks all for all your help. Thanks for coming. And we'll see